Will you please make welcome Brother Adam Lamb? You're awesome, brother.
Everybody, good to be here. Lots of people. Everybody get some food?
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna do a reverse bless the meal, and we'll bless the service too. Bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you in Jesus' name. We thank you, Lord, that the storm outside or the storm inside our hearts cannot stop us from your love and what you've called us to do. We ask you, God, to continue to bless this church. Bless every person under my voice. Lead them, God, to their purpose. Fill them with the power of your Holy Spirit. May they never step back from that power. I ask you to bless them tonight, lead them tonight, open their hearts, speak to them in a way that only you can. We're believing for it. We're receiving it right now. We are in agreement. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. You guys can all sit down. So I get weirded out when you're standing. Let me get my notes out. Can everybody hear me all right? Is this good? Is it good? Okay. So tonight, something that's been on my heart pretty heavy lately is the topic around our name. Our name has a lot to do with, God knew our name in our mother's womb. I believe God, through our parents, names us as well for that. And we'll also go into, we talked a lot about identity, which can be connected to our name. But we're also going to talk about the integrity as well, which is something we want to associate with our name. We're going to go through some of the things in the Bible that, in studying this topic of our name, really, I was like, man, God is serious about names. And so I want you to be serious about names. Your name, specifically. The church, this church has a name, right? Revival Today. How many people are part of Revival Today Church? Everybody say, I am Revival Today.
I am Revival Today.
You are. So how do you feel when you say that out loud? Is there a feeling? Do you feel good about it? Do you feel bad about it? Do you feel like there's a purpose that when you say I am, I'm committing to something beyond myself when I say that, right? And so when we think of names, and this goes, traditionally I'm here to talk about business, but some of the focus is mindset, right? So when we think of a name, we think of a name brand, right? I have a personal brand. My name's Adam Lamb, right? And my personal brand hasn't always been the same as it is today. I didn't speak at church, that's for sure. And with that personal brand, I also have businesses. So I have brands as well. Those brands have reputation for doing things, right? So we can have a family brand, right? We can know somebody. It's like, oh, the Smiths, those guys, right? And so I just want to get you, I want to start off with getting you thinking about this idea around names. And we'll talk, and it may engage some of you guys, so don't forget your name if I ask you what it is. Even if I know it, because I want to ask you some questions about your names too, as I may go around, just to inspire thought. And it's something I think we really neglect, and I feel bad. I'm going to call myself out. There's a woman over here that gave me a nice gift. I don't. She's not there. Ha! No, I'm just joking. But in my head, I was like, I don't remember her name, and I want to talk about that too, because it's super, super important. Because who are we? We have a name, right? And I'll tell you a funny story about my name. And this is way before I was saved. I was in my 20s. I was waiting tables. And I remember this, this lady asked me my name, this old black woman. And I was like, Adam Lamb. She's like, woo, boy, that's a powerful biblical name. And I was like, I'll never forget, I can hear her voice. And I was like, she was excited about my name. And I just thought the Adam part, right, of being, Adam and Eve. And that's all I knew. I didn't think of Jesus the Lamb and Adam was the first and Jesus came to restore, and then having other people break it down to me later once I got saved, I was like, holy smokes. My middle name's Stephen, who's someone that I really think is a powerful person in the Bible too. And so, but I didn't know. But I can't help but think God knew, It just took me time to discover it. And so when I still have that woman's voice in my head, it didn't mean anything then, but now it means the world to me to realize like, maybe there was a different purpose in my name than I anticipated. Maybe it wasn't just something that my parents decided to call me. I don't even know. I don't know if it was my mom, my dad. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you guys. But I'm sharing this with you. I want you to start thinking about your name. I want you to think of, all our names. Like how many people have a biblical name? I was thinking of you, Luke, right? Right? That's pretty cool. How many people have kids with biblical names that are in here that have named their kid? Yeah. I heard someone in the bathroom said Isaac, and there's a little Isaac running around here somewhere. Maybe a couple of them. Praise the Lord. And so it's interesting, and I want you to go down this because part of it, I think of like Adalis. Like I know her name, and she knows I'm her name, and if I say her, no one else is confused about who I'm talking about, right? So in this moment, you're special. And so think of how we feel when someone knows our name. Now, if our name's associated with bad things, oh, you're one of those, oh, you're Jonathan's kid. Like if there was something like that where you'd be like, uh-oh, right? And so with that, and we'll go into that a little bit later, but our name, what it could be associated with, could be bad news. It could make us feel bad. It could make us not like our name. I remember growing up as a kid, I didn't like my name, Adam. I liked the name Mike, because it was like Mike, Michael, Mikey, and I thought that was so cool. And this kid down the street is Mike Mitrot was his name. And I was like, so he had the coolest name. And so guess what my son's name is? Michael. Talk about carrying that with you. I mean, I love my name now. I don't love when I meet other Adams. I want to be the only one. But it's funny, like as the time goes on with our names and thinking about who we are. And a lot of us may have had a name change. How many people have been married in here and changed their name? I had a friend of mine that works for me. She's getting married recently. And we were talking and she was like, man, my name's about to change. The woman that I've known, she's mid-30s, her whole life, and it's changed. And we were talking about the conversation. She's not the woman she was. She wasn't saved 2 years ago. Now she is. Met an awesome Christian guy. Finally got out of a bad relationship. Actually, Dallas, you know her. But we were just having this conversation of like how her name's going to change. And she's like, who is this new woman, right, with this new last name? How do I want her to be remembered? How do I want her to become? Like, who is she to become here in the future? Because the name change, the person is the same, but we all believe we're born again once we're born again, right? There's change that can happen. There's decisions that can be made. There's habits that can be broken. There's bondage that can be smashed. And then those things are no longer attached to our name. And so, again, I want you guys to continue, just walk down this path with me on the name piece as we go into it, because I want you to really, if you can value, if when you say your name, you can just value that, like just hearing it come out of your voice, your entire life will change. If when someone asks you your name and you're like, Adam, and it doesn't like, man, you're special. Like everyone in here is special. They have a name. It's tied to you. You know what I mean? Maybe you got your Tom Smith. There's a few of you, but at least you got a social security number that should be different. But it matters because God named you made you a certain. Look around, like we're all different people, right? We're all like, it's a beautiful thing, and that image, this container, is attached to a name, and it's also, and we'll talk about that in identity, right? And so the identity of, you may think of me versus what my wife might think of me versus what someone who I knew 20 years ago doesn't know me today might think of me, could be different, right? But that doesn't change who I am. I get to decide who I am. And God is the one that's kind of been in charge of this entire thing, right? And so I really want you to get locked into this name thing here. And so one of the things too, how many people are bad with names? Anybody? I come and go with it. And let's be honest, that's an excuse, all right? What that says is, try instead of saying I'm bad with names, try saying, I don't really care when I meet people that much. My name's Adam. I probably won't remember your name. I'm paying attention. I'm thinking about what I need to say as you introduce yourself, right? Like if we get really honest, then it's like, ugh. That doesn't make me feel good about myself. So I'm going to do a better job. I want to remember that. I remember a good friend of mine, we were talking, he lived in this apartment, and he's like, man, there's this guy, when I see him in the hallway, and he was in Chicago, in this elevator, I always remember my friend's name's Eric. He's like, I don't know this guy. But he always is like, hey, Eric, how are you? And he remembers where he works. He remembers the things. Like, I don't remember anything about this guy, and I feel horrible. Every time he remembers my name, I feel good for a second, and then I remember that I don't know anything about this guy. And I was like, well, we should work on that. And so, but him and I made a commitment to like learn names better, right? It's a commitment, it's a decision. There's an intentional side of me coming up and saying, hi, I'm Adam, you're Sam, right? Like whatever, I got to say it in my head. Maybe I have to ask some specific questions to create triggers. But it matters, and it matters in business too, right? So this is something that matters just in life. When you can remember, the people that remember everybody's name, I mean, maybe you guys have experienced this where someone remembers your name, you're like, whoa. That's cool. Well, how is that person? I don't remember their name, right? And it happens to me, and I feel bad about it because I value people's names. When I go out to eat, sit down at a restaurant, I need to know who this person's name is that's taking care of me. I like to know that, and maybe even going. Sometimes I want to get to know them. Sometimes even until they're like, dude, can I just serve you your burger? And we're not trying to be friends here. And but I'd like a big tip. And so. I want you to continue to think about that and think of places where someone has remembered your name that's been important to you, right? Or someone's called your name, right? Some of us in here, our name might be mom or dad, right? And that's an important name. And so thinking through that, it's super important because I want you to be attached to it. Because when I can remember your name, I will see you as an individual. I'll see you as a person. And when I remember your name, you're also gonna feel a little bit more like I care, right? When I say your name. And so in doing this, whether it's in personal or in business, it's super powerful. And maybe you guys have experienced it, and that's why I want you to think about it. If you can remember a time that someone remembered your name, that even maybe someone, I don't know, somewhat famous, or someone that you just thought the CEO of the company, and they remembered your name, and you're like, whoa. How you feel like you're 10 feet tall and like handsome and all these great things because someone important remembered you, which guess what that makes you feel? Important, right? So as people, we can do this with each other. And in business, it is super, super powerful. And it's something that I'm not always great at. But if I'm trying, if I'm being intentional, and it can be hard when you meet like 20 people, right? But that's the challenge. Be intentional, say, you know what, I'm gonna meet these people, I'm gonna remember their name, I'm going to do whatever I have to do. And sometimes it's just, I could be like, hey, Sam, hey, Dallas. And I could do it maybe quickly in a certain period, right? To remember that name. Whatever I have to do is create almost like a game around it. It will just change the way you engage with people. It'll change the way people feel about you. And whether it's in business or personal relationships, it's super powerful. And so, I want to go into, I got a few verses, but we'll get into, I'll start with Exodus 3:14 if someone wants to do that. But I'm going to talk about Genesis, but we'll get to Exodus. Just giving you a head start. And so in Genesis, God names Adam. He named the sea, he named the land, right? And when you look through this, you're like, why couldn't it just be something? It was a void, and that wasn't okay. He had to name it. And then with Adam, he said, hey, Adam, I'm tired. You go name all these animals. So Adam got to name all these animals. So I think it's funny too, is some of the boring parts of the Bible that I skim through, but I found myself not doing that because of this. And I learned something the other day I'll share with you. It's like when you have the whole, like the names, the family names, you know, married to this person, the brother of this person, sister, like all their kids. And you're like, dude, let's get to the goods. Let's get to the juicy part of the story. But why do you think God didn't leave all that out? Because it's important. Right. Think of how much of the Bible has all these tribes, all their names, where they came from, all the individuals, an annoying amount. I would, like for me, wanting to read the Bible, it doesn't excite me as like David cutting off Goliath's head, but it's part of the Bible. It's just important. All of the Bible is important. Is all of the Bible important? Yes? Amen. So, looking back at that, because I caught myself the other day reading, I was reading about Jacob, and I'll talk about him too, and I got to that part, and I wanted to skip through it all. And And I stopped. I was like, I'm reading it. I'm on this name kick. It's super important. I'm going to go through it. And I didn't realize, did you realize that Esau went back and married a daughter of Ishmael, who was one of Abraham's the other son, and had a daughter just to spite his dad, Isaac, for the birthright going to Jacob. I didn't know that. And I was reading it. I was like, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I know Ishmael of Abraham's son. And so he, out of spite, went back and got a wife where his dad told him not to, specifically from his half brother, right? And just out of spite. And I was like, man, I would have missed that if I would have cruised through this little name lineage thing. So anyway, it's important. I learned something. Maybe you guys just did too. Let's read our Bibles a little bit more. Amen? Who would have thought I'd be telling people to read their Bible more? That's awesome. And so let's go to, if we got Exodus 3:14, maybe we're, okay, you guys go. And so, I'll read up here. And then God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Because Moses is asking him, he's like, who should I tell him sent me? And he's like, I am, right? The great I am. And I think that's awesome because that's the first time in the Bible that God actually introduced himself with his name to Moses. And so it was important to God to express that. And he kind of said it like, just like, I am. Just tell them that. Like they will look, it's almost like they will know in their hearts who I am. And it's pretty profound because if you're not familiar with Scripture, that might seem kind of weird. And so some other areas going through the Bible where God changed Abraham's name, right? He was Abram to Abraham. Sarai, I think her name was, to Sarah, right? And it goes on. Jacob became Israel, which the nations of Israel are born out of, right? And one of the things I love about the word Israel, maybe you guys know, but it means one that wrestles with God, right? We know about Jacob wrestling with God, and the sun's coming up, and he gets him in the hip, so he's got a limp. But that's what it means. And when we think of the nation of Israel too, well, it's the nation of Israel, one who wrestles with God, right? And so like the names that, God changed a very important person's name in the Bible, right? To Israel, made a nation about it. It means one that wrestles with God. And you're like, gosh, all that out of that name? I just thought it was just a name, right? It wasn't even Jacob anymore. He upgraded to a name that we are talking about the nation today, heavily. And so a name is super important, and it's super important to God. And what's important to God is important to me. Amen? And so some more is, Jesus asked Peter who he is, Matthew 16:13 through 20. And that's interesting. There's not only does Jesus in this moment of Matthew 16:13 through 20, does he ask who he is? So he's saying, who do you guys say I am? And then he renames Peter too, right? So Jesus asked the disciples, who do you say I am? And Peter, I'll paraphrase it because I don't have the whole thing here. But and Peter says, you're the Messiah. And Jesus is like, surely that didn't come to you through flesh. That came through, our Heavenly Father. And he says, and you, Peter, Simon Peter, drops the Simon to Peter, you'll be the rock that I'll build my church on. So he transitions his name to almost like a new creation, right? And so it's interesting how throughout the Bible, again, he does this. And then we can even talk about like Saul, the Christian killer, becomes Paul, the guy that plowed the path for Christianity, right? And so hopefully you guys are kind of following me with all this name stuff and why it's super important. And I'm going to ask you, what's your name?
Maddie. Oh, Ortiz?
Now, what's your first, your birth name? Full name?
Arkless.
But your first name?
Madison. Madison Claire Arkless.
Right. Was that different than she first told us? Yes. And is that when you say that, do you feel like that's not really who you are? Madison Claire? Yeah. So there's a part of that that's identity is change.
My maiden? Okay, my maiden name is Marissa Janice Femeth. And then now it's Marissa Janice Turman.
And so when you went through that name change, did you feel different? Yes. And do you have a shortened nickname at all? little honey butt or something? But when you do this with yourself. It's a cool exercise to see, especially like I know that I picked on two women here because I know you guys are married and had to have a name change. And how about nicknames? Has anyone ever had any nicknames that, I'll share mine, but I won't embarrass anybody with yours, but anybody have any nicknames that they don't hang on to anymore? Anyone, no, nicknames, you got one? I see, yeah. You got a nickname too? You want to share it? You can still have that nickname, hopefully it's cute. What's your nickname?
Isa.
I like that. Do you like it? It's beautiful. What's your full name?
Isabella Carter Soto.
Nice. That's a beautiful name. And then you hear that voice. So that name we're associating with that sweet voice and that sweet girl and that smile, right? And so all these things become part of our name if we take the time to think about it. And if we take the time to think about it, we become these individuals that are different than just a room full of people, right? And when I can remind myself to slow down and see each individual and appreciate who they are and their story, even if I don't know it, right? But know that they do have one. It's not just a blanket of people. You will feel me differently, right? We will connect better. We'll be stronger as a community. All these things happen by that simple intention. I'll share a nickname. So when I was younger, my nickname was Eddie. Some of you guys are old enough, Eddie Haskell. There's probably a few people in this room from Leave It to Beaver. If you're too young, Google it. You're lucky. Because I was kind of like a troublemaker, but I could put the show on for the parents. So all my friends used to get so mad because I was like, everybody's parents thought I was like the good kid, but because I was like polite, knew how to play the game, but I was always like not the good kid. And my buddies used to get so jealous, so they'd all call me Eddie. I mean, I still have friends today that call me Eddie. And there's a part of me, I can appreciate the long relationship, but I'm not that guy, right? And I had plenty of bad, inappropriate nicknames growing up, just through choice of living life certain ways. And some of them weren't nicknames that I felt good about, right? It is an attachment to certain nicknames that maybe you were made fun of as a kid or something like that you're like, I hate that nickname. Or it goes into that identity of who you were, right? And that's what the thing I love about this walk with Christianity too is we're all born again. Your business can be born again. Obviously, we can be born again as people. Your marriage can be born again. We have an opportunity to change some of the attachment of our name to our past because we don't live there anymore, right? And we serve a God that forgives, a God that forgets. He says he forgets it. He doesn't even remember it. We're the morons that remember the stupid things that we're not supposed to do that. And so that can't be associated with my name anymore, right? And it's funny because some of the people that struggle the most with maybe the person I am today is the people that were around the old guy, right? How many of you guys have people in this room that still talk to you like you're someone from the past that you aren't anymore, right? And it can be super frustrating. But I have to remember who I am. I have to remember who God's called me to be. I have to remember who the man is today, right? And when I can do that, that stuff rolls off like rain on a duck's back. I don't know about that rain outside, but that's how it should. And so I want to talk a little bit about personal brand, because with my name comes association, right? So I think of today, I think it would be interesting if everybody took out a little card and they're like, who's Adam Lamb? And you had to do like a 2 little sentence thing, right? But you would all probably have something a little different. And it'd be an interesting experience. And this is something to think about. And there's a book that does an exercise similar to this I'll talk about. But imagine if everybody you knew wrote a little two-paragraph thing about who you are, right? What would you agree with it, do you think? Do you think everybody, let's say in the room, or everyone in your family, or everyone at the office, if they were like, your name, let's say Adam Lamb, and they just went on with it? And it's interesting when you think about that. Now, listen, I do not think you should get stuck thinking about what other people think. But I think if you're not living your life in a certain way that you wouldn't want, that make people attach negative things to your name, change it. Change your life. Change your attitude. Change the way you treat people. Change your health. Change how you spend your time. Whatever it is. If you had to rethink that. And there's an exercise, and it's a book, it's a great book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you haven't read it, please, church, go get that book. Stephen Covey's he's a believer. Old school book that changed my life. Before the Bible, I said it was the greatest book ever written. And I read the Bible, so it's the second book, greatest book ever written. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And Stephen Covey, he goes through this exercise. He says, if you're at your funeral, like what would they say at the eulogy? What would they say about you? And it was powerful. I mean, it almost brings me to tears. Because I was like, when I read that book, and I was probably 33, if I died then, they wouldn't have a lot of cool stuff to say. They could be like, I don't know, this is maybe not super nice, but I'll do it anyway. But have you ever read like someone's obituary and you're like, that's not true. I knew that dude, not true. I had a guy that knew that was like straight up spouse abusing, drug dealing, like just a shaky guy. And when a buddy of mine sent us his obituary that he passed away, I was like, it's not that guy. And that may not sound nice. I'm just being honest. And so, sure, people might say those nice things because people say the nice things at the right time. But what are they thinking? And think about that eulogy. If they were talking about your death, how would they describe your life? Right? Some of you guys are young and you haven't had a lot to do. But some of us have had a lot of life to live. And is it something that people would talk about? And that leads into legacy. And I'll go a little bit more into legacy here in a second. But that is something that really changed my life that I want you guys to ask yourselves for yourself. And it can start, listen, if you're not dead, you got time to create a legacy. So I want you to think about what does that look like? If I died tomorrow, like what would my, and they didn't fluff who I was and make all this, I want to be something greater than a husband and a dad, like something way greater than that. But that's a choice. It's an intention. Just like the same intention of remembering your name when I meet you, I have to remember my name when I'm choosing my future and what I want people to remember my name as, right? And so I want to talk about personal brand. Let's look at Proverbs 22:1. See if they can get that up there. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favor rather than silver and gold. And so a name or a reputation or a personal brand is so vital because I think of when I wasn't living life well, I had a personal brand that, people just called me to go hang out and drink and go to bars and do like nothing productive. No one called me to build the business. No one called me for advice. No one called me for advice. Like, no one called me for anything positive that made me feel good. But I had chosen a bad name for myself. And then today, I mean, all the time, someone's calling me to do some great thing. It's amazing. People call me, like, the things that change. I'm still the same, pile of flesh, but I've been reborn, right? But I've also had to make a lot of new choices, new habits, and build a whole new reputation. And so instead of having, young people listening, don't ever get a bad reputation. Have a good reputation of being honest, being hardworking, being someone that cares, someone that goes above and beyond. And then what happens is that reputation helps you build. And we'll talk about that in legacy. The other I'm going to do Ecclesiastes 7:1 is another verse that I want to talk about on this. And so thinking about your name, your brand, like who are you beside like the title at your job Like if you have a business card, which I don't get rid of your business cards. I don't like them. But if you had business, I mean, it's something that rather than a business card, let me get your phone number. What makes you feel better? Me handing you my card or me saying, oh, let me get your phone number. Here, I'll just text you right now. Sometimes I regret doing that because then the wrong people are calling my phone all the time like we're new best friends. But hey, whatever. You win some, you lose some. Just do what that little nudge that God gives you got to follow it. So Ecclesiastes 7:1, a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. What? Yeah, we're going to peel that. We're going to dive into that. I thought it was so powerful that the day of your death is more important than the day of your birth. That's different. I don't remember that verse. Anyone else super familiar with that verse? No. So a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. Well, I must have had to accomplish something, right? We live in this society that is so scared to die, that we will curl up in a ball doing a bunch of unhealthy, unfruitful things, scared to die. When guess what? I mean, everybody in here is saved, if you guys all are. Wednesday night, listen to me, unless maybe you're just hungry. We're going to heaven. Woo! Like, well, that's where we're going. I'm not scared of dying. I don't want to because I'm having a blast. I just got a Lamborghini yesterday. That's fun. Can I go ride around in that? And so, but the day of death is more than the day of one's birth. And so that would mean something is to be celebrated or highlighted on the day of my death, on all of your deaths. That's where that legacy comes in, that eulogy. What are they saying about your life? What did you do? He worked real hard for 60 years, and he was miserable. He's a pretty good husband, and helped his kids get through college. I don't want that. I want something great. And there's a challenge. If I was going to give you guys some homework, I wasn't going to, but I'm kind of feeling it in my heart right now, is write a little quick eulogy about yourself. What would you want people to say? Some of us are like, I don't want to talk. Write it. Because you may change the way you live your life to go fulfill this powerful eulogy you're willing to do and stop waiting around to die. I'm not saying you are, but a lot of us, based on perspective or definition, might be waiting around to die because we're so worried, so scared. And so living this life that leads to a legacy. And I never really heard the term legacy till I was like late 20s, early 30s. I had to figure out what it was. And when I did, it changed the way I looked at my future. And I wanted to create a legacy. I want great-great-grandchildren of mine to look back and say, like, man, that great-great-grandpa Adam and great-grandma Michelle, sounds funny. Like, wow, they just did amazing stuff. Like if you've ever known someone that's related to someone like old and famous, that's like, oh, my great-great-grandpa was Abraham Lincoln's whatever, nephew or something like that. Like I want to have a cool legacy like that. Well, I can't do it just sitting around all day. And I can't do it doing average things. And so it requires me to go think and do other things if I want this greatness, this legacy associated to it. I also want to have financially take care of my family forever, right? I think of these like the Rockefellers and some of these other people that I'm like, why not me? No one in my family, like sure they did, good hardworking people, but no one did any empire building legacy stuff, right? We think of like Kennedys and Bushes, like these people, like somebody made a decision that said, I'm going to do this way bigger, and y'all down the road are going to be very grateful and blessed that I did it. And so I want to build that because I looked at it and I was like, if not me, who? My son? Maybe. But how about I just do the best I can and set him up to do the best he can, and then this thing changes. And I opened a family trust back 2 years ago, and that because this legacy thing weighed on me, and it's a 300-year trust that I want to fund, I want to grow, I want to build this thing financially to have something that takes care of the things that are important to me, which would be my family, the church, and whatever business legacy things that go along with it. Because I'm thinking 300 years, like I'm long gone. No, dude, I want 300 years. If we're still talking about Peter and Paul, like I still want people talking about me in 300 years. Long after I'm dead and in heaven, they're still talking about me. Why? Is it ego? No, it's just I want to have a great impact. I see other people. There's people we read about, people we've talked about today. Why not me? And I would ask you, why not you? Do you want a legacy? You don't think you're qualified? I'm not. Definitely not. But you can make a decision that I want to create a legacy for my family. I want to do something so big that my family, people behind me, talk about me, thank me. Think about it. It can be furthering the kingdom of God, all that. If we make the decision. And so the legacy can be a very, very powerful thing when we choose to step into it. Because we have personal legacy. How will I be remembered as Adam Lamb, this man? My short story here and on this planet. Like, what will they remember me as? What I'm grateful for today, I'm 44, that I've done a lot more good in the last, call it 15 years, than the previous 30, right? Or whatever, 20 years. And so what happens is we might be sitting here in a place of thinking like, I haven't really done much. This eulogy thing's making me depressed. I don't really have an idea and a legacy. You're not dead. Great news. Pivot. Make a choice. Do something. You have the opportunity to do it. And that's why at 33, it hit me. I don't know what it was. I had my daughter, and I just had this moment where I was like, what the heck am I doing? I was like, right now, if I died, I was a bodybuilder. I was good at fun to go out and party with. I was good at meeting girls. That's it. Dude, that sucks. I got to change that. You can't change it in 12 months. I mean, you can win the lottery. I'm scared to play the lottery because and this sounds super silly. I don't want to win the lottery because I don't want people to be like, wow, because you won the lottery. No, dude. It's even I'll tell you this, my in-laws have done well for themselves. And it was one of those things that for me, I was like, I want to be so successful before they pass because I want to be like, oh, well, that's, Adam had that inheritance from his in-laws. Dude, I'm running from that. I don't know if that's pride, whatever you want to call it, but I mean it because for me, I want to build this legacy. I don't want to be the guy that was, oh yeah, he had that family inheritance and they got to reinvest it and he was all set. No, I want my blood, sweat, and tears. I want all the doors. I want God to be glorified and all the doors, all the things, all the opportunity, right? I don't want a lottery ticket, right? I don't want something else to do that. And so part of that legacy is I want to build it. I don't want this thing to land in my lap. I want the legacy to be formed, right? If you just, like I said, you won some sweepstakes tomorrow and got $10 million and made some smart financial decisions, did you build a legacy? I don't know. I'll take it. I mean, I would take the money, but I'd take the $100 million lottery once I've already got $500 million, right? So then I was just like, oh yeah, a little extra to go do something dumb with. But it sounds silly, but I was thinking about that just on the way to the airport this morning because I could see the lottery sign. And I was like, man, I would be so, I would love to win the lottery, but there's another part of if everyone's like, oh, well, yeah, because the guy won the lottery. As opposed to someone that's like, oh yeah, he went and built 24 businesses, acquired $1 billion in wealth doing that, served here, did this, changed life. That's a legacy. Winning the lottery is not a legacy. What are you praying for? What are you guys asking God for? A lottery ticket or a legacy? Because if you're asking him for a lottery ticket and you're expecting a legacy, you're going to be disappointed. But if you ask him to show you the way to a legacy, God, what does my legacy look like? So that you're glorified through the life that I go and pursue and fulfill. What does that look like? And I promise you're going to find a lot of success going down that path. And then family legacy, community legacy. How does my local community, how will this community think of Revival Today Church? How will this community be impacted by each and every one of you? Maddie, you have your hand on this community. This community is better because of Maddie or Madison, right? And so when you connect to that, part of your identity, part of your name, it's part of this church, it's part of the mission, it's part of what's in your heart, the legacy starts to stack. Who knows where it could go? Like they might name a high school after you down the road. Like you never know. But they won't if you're doing nothing. So you got to do something. And what should you do? Ask God. God, show me the way. Show me the way to create this legacy in partnership with you so that I can go and impact tens of thousands of people, right? Like that's when I go to my grave, I want, and it's changed to hundreds of thousands of people, to be like, that guy helped me. Like, that guy got me to turn my life around. It makes me emotional because that's how bad I want to help people. It's not about me, pride, money. It's about impact. If you don't want it enough that it brings you to tears, you will probably not work hard enough for it. And that's how legacies get built. Global, and then spiritual legacy, right? You think of Jonathan 20 years ago starting as an evangelist, like probably couldn't even have fathomed what he's doing today. And then you get to a place where you're at today, and this is where I think him and I are such good friends, is we think very similar. And we're like, what else? If I could do that, not even trying in 20 years, what could I do trying and really believing in the next 20 years? And it's unbelievable. And that's why when I share my goals, and people are like, Adam, and I'm like, why not? Why? If not me, who? Every single person in this room. If not you, who? Just choose. It's a choice. I just have to choose that I'm going to go have a powerful impact. I'm going to go create a powerful legacy. I'm going to go solve a huge problem, and I'm going to be able to give back and contribute to other people along the way. Right? And when I make that decision, God will get behind it. If you just want a lottery ticket, he's not going to give you a legacy. And so we talked about personal brand, born again, new creation, new reputation. Yeah, part of that, as Christians, the born again thing was tough for me in the beginning. I didn't really get it. Which, actually, what's super cool is Sunday will be 5 years since I was born again baptized. 5 years in. Thank you. I just remembered that, which is super special. Me and my kids got baptized together, and it was a special day. It's still one of the most special days of my life. And I look back and I think, am I building this legacy for the Lord, right? And it's like, I've only been saved 5 years. And so to me, I don't think that's much time, but in my head, I'm like, I'm on borrowed time, right? I feel like when I look at my walk with the Lord, it's so short, I should say my walk in life, when you think of when Jesus talks about the fig tree with the farmer and the landowner and the fig tree that wouldn't produce fruit. That was me. I feel like God's like, hey, this dude, 38 years, he ain't done nothing but trouble. And Jesus is like, just give me one more chance. And I never looked back. And when I read that verse, the Lord showed me, he's like, that was you. If you would have said no, you'd have been dead. And so how many of us were that close? Because God's like, look, you're not going to create a legacy that fulfill the purpose of the thing I put in your heart. I don't need you here. You might distract somebody else from theirs. Like, I really, really honestly believe that Jesus said, will you? I said, yes. He's like, all right, producing fruit. And so especially for young people in here, like, are you producing fruit? Make sure you continue to produce fruit, because I don't want to be the fig tree that's got to get ripped out of the ground and thrown into the fire. And so I'll share that with you. But I say that with the born again topic, with the new creation, new reputation, new habits, new goals, new friends. As new believers, that can be a challenge. So remembering that too with early convert sounds weird, sounds culty, but new Christians, like remembering that with them and getting them involved in new things. Because I think of, a lot of my friend circle changed, but there's still a lot of people that are still around. Because guess what? We're also called to lead the lost. Right now, if those friend groups are going to take us down a bad path, we got to get rid of them. But remembering that born again as it attaches to our name. And then when it comes to, on the business brand side too, a lot of you in here are entrepreneurs, but creating that brand that can be very complicated without clarity. And the reason I say that is when we talk about going back to on the personal side, we can all relate to this, right? So like my name is Adam Lamb. I say I'm a healthcare entrepreneur or consultant. Actually, I was on the news Monday. Second time. Talking about healthcare. And the first time I was on, a couple months before that, they're like, what's your title? Who are you other than your name? And I was like, it took me a minute because it's evolved. Am I an entrepreneur? Am I a coach? Am I a consultant? And I landed on healthcare consultant. But it was an interesting thing to do, again, because I value the name, not a title. If you're like, I'm the vice president, I don't really care about that as much as, but who are you, right? Like, who are you? I'm a husband.
Adam Lamb, healthcare consultant, and Stephanie Nash, agriculture advocate, join me now. All right, Adam.
What else? Who are you? Oh yeah, there we go. Carl Higbee, he's a good guy. He identified as a Christian the other day on the news, which I thought was funny. His dad's born again. He's like, hey, tuck your cross in, dude. People won't listen to you. No, he did. He said he's like the studies show that if you get your cross out, people will ignore you. He's like they'll follow you. Your cross could push them away. And honestly, I asked the Lord. I was like, God, what do you want me to do? And God said, it's okay. He's like, if they'll follow you, you'll get them to me. And so it was interesting, but.
Adam Lamb, healthcare consultant, and Stephanie Nash, agriculture advocate, join me now. All right, Adam, you've made a career about correcting some of the bad habits we have as Americans,
We're talking about
people healthier. How
state of health
do we get
in
this back on track? How do we
so,
beat the system
I could
of
be
billions of dollars?
as part of my personal brand as someone I've been in health and wellness my entire life. I've been working out for over 30 years. I've been a leader in that, and something that was a healthcare consultant. So something that was a passion of mine transformed into a business of mine. Right? So you guys sitting in this room today could have a passion, and that could transition into a business because it's part of your personal brand.
Other countries like Europe, right?
But you could go actually build a business brand on this passion.
And
that's what I was in the mortgage space. I loved working out. I loved health and wellness. I was good at it. I knew a lot of stuff about it.
For what they approve as far
very,
as
very important people saw my advice and attention to help them solve stuff, and it made me feel good, made me feel significant, right? That's something a lot of us are always chasing, good or bad, is significance. And I thought, man, how can I do what I love and build a business? And what I loved was talking about health, wellness, and hormones and nutrition and all that stuff, and I started a business. And today I still talk about that, but today I build businesses. And I build people. I transform people to an old version, new version. Businesses to operating to next level. And that's my passion today, right? Transformation. That's like I'm in the business of transformation. And so in creation, those are the things I love as well. And so it can evolve, right? This legacy, if we trust God and let him lead us down the path. And so when you think of big brands, what are some, I want someone to shout out what are some big brands? Name one. Who's got one? What's that? That wasn't a shout. Is that a shout? Come on, Sam. Shout. There he is. Ooh, and a tone change. All right, someone else? Yeah, that's a big brand. Yep. P&G. Who else? So when you think of these brands, and I'll tell you what I had Apple, Kleenex. I'm going to come back to Kleenex. And Coke. And the reason I like that is, there's a time when people were like, hey, will you grab me a Coke? And it meant Coca-Cola or a cola of some sort. There's just, it connected. And Kleenex is one of the biggest ones. The thing you blow your nose in is a tissue. I don't know if, I still call it a Kleenex. I mean, maybe I think I transitioned more to a tissue because my kids don't really know what Kleenex is as much. But a brand that has massive connection. And Apple, we talk about Apple. There's just, you can feel a certain way, especially if you're one of those weirdos with an Android. You might feel, you might feel different about you. We feel weird about you too. It's okay. but we get along. I'm like, "What? You know they have this cool Apple thing, and our texts are blue instead of that weird green that's complicated, and then we got to do a group chat, and you screw it up." All right, let me transit. I'm sorry. We definitely give each other a hard time for having non-Apple products. She has an Android. She walked away. And so what is required to build a big brand, personal and business? Right, so some of these things, remember, guys, I'm going to dive in because not everybody here wants to build a business, start a business, do anything of that. But we have a personal brand, and the same principles apply. And this is where a lot of businesses go wrong, is they lack the connection of the two. Or their personal brand, their personal integrity sucks, and guess what they're going to build in a business? It's going to suck too. And so, well, I got to get my personal. If I'm doing the right thing, doing all the things I should be doing personally, I can apply those same principles into my business success. And I'll tell you that helped me more than I would have ever understood was bodybuilding. It sounds so silly, but in bodybuilding, I knew what I was. You could tell me, "Hey, what are you doing at 3:00 on Sunday?" I'm like, "I'm eating this meal," and I had my workouts. Everything was regimented out, right? And we might adjust it based on how my condition was changing when I was getting ready for a bodybuilding competition. But I was telling a client of mine today, like when I would go, I'd be 235 pounds, like still decently fit. And in 16 weeks, I'd get down to like 190 pounds, 2% body fat, shredded. And it was just a formula. I did the boring things. So go to bed this time, get up at this time, eat this, eat this, eat this, eat this. Go to the gym here, do this. 4 sets of 15, 4 sets of, like boring stuff. But the boring stuff is where the success comes. And it's like, and I think, like I was saying, I got a new Lamborghini yesterday. That's not boring. But all the boring stuff that I did, where people are like, "Must be nice." I'm like, "Yeah, well, let me tell you about 15 years of being super, like, boring stuff." I went on vacation. I went on a cruise with my family this year. It was the first time in over 10 years I went on vacation that I did not have to, like, work. Like, I still checked email, but that I didn't have to work. Oh, yeah. So, man, you guys are good up there. All right, media room. And so I'm going to tell you something funny. I can only say it with a group like this. I told God, I was like, "Hey, God," and this is going to sound crazy, but roll with me, guys. I want you to be as crazy as I am if you aspire to be. But I was like, "God, I'm kind of sick of this Ferrari. I've always wanted a Lamborghini. I've always wanted this blue Lamborghini with the black wheels, this black gloss package, but it was never around." And I was like, "Listen, Lord, if you make that available, I'm not being ungrateful, I wouldn't mind switching," right? 2 weeks later, the guy at the dealership's like, "Hey, I just brought this in. I know you said you like this blue thing." And I was like, "Yeah, here's what I want for the Ferrari. Like, if we can just do that, I won't haggle with you on that. Cool. All right, I'll go to Adam." And I was like, "Praise the Lord." and a lot of people, that's why this is a safe place to talk about this in this church. But God doesn't care what you drive. He cares about the joy in your heart. He cares about your heart for him and your heart for other people. And I think that's pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. And so he's like, "What? Ferrari, who? He doesn't care. Will that bring you joy? Yeah. Will you tell people the story about me? Yeah, for sure." Same with my Ferrari. Was it something when I got that? I probably told you guys that story, but I wasn't looking for a Ferrari. I sat in one. I went and got my son a Jeep. And I bought from the same dealership. They have regular cars there too. And I sat. The sales guy he had to go get like some like a VIN or something inside the Ferrari. I was like, "Is that a Ferrari F8?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I've never sat in one of those. Let's get in." I sat in it and I thought, I could drive this car. I'd never sat in a Ferrari in my life. And I was like, I could drive this car. Wasn't even on my mind. 2 weeks later, a friend of mine who has an F8 was like, "Hey, I'm getting ready to sell this Ferrari." He's like, "I know you've said you like it, took interest in it. If you want, I'll sell it to you for what the dealership offered me," which was a great deal, and those things have appreciated. So I basically drove that Ferrari for 6 months for free. which sounds crazy, but I spend time. Hey, look, some guys are looking at sports on the internet, and some guys are looking at worse stuff on the internet. I'm looking at car gurus. Like, I love cars, and so same thing. And when I got that deal, I was like, all right, Lord, listen. If you want me to have it, I'm not going to push this thing through. If you want it to happen, and the deal was so incredibly worked out so great for me. That was all the Lord. Like, things happened in that process of getting that Ferrari that I couldn't even have come up with, right? And so it made me. I was like, man, God. I mean, you guys, Jonathan gets a plane, right? So it's not a lot of places where people are like, oh yeah, I mean, that's just the Lord, right? And so expecting God to deliver those kind of things for us, because the Bible says it, right? If you wicked fathers, which you still treat your kids okay, what would your heavenly Father do? And it's like, he'll get you a Lamborghini. But I really, 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 truly believe those are things that the Lord does to encourage us that we're on the right path. I do believe that from a heart standpoint. I really, 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 truly believe that, because I know when I felt like my work was there, but my heart wasn't, and things were not flowing. Right? There's the flow and the force. When it comes to the Lord, we should be in a flow all the time, the Holy Spirit. If we are forcing things, that's the flesh. The flesh forces, faith is a flow, right, with the Lord. And so remember that when you get in those stuck spots, it's like, maybe you're just not supposed to be doing that. So the part of the building what's required to build a big brand, personal or business, is integrity. And the Proverbs 10:9 says, whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. And it's interesting, I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier before I came here, and he was talking about this guy who, people do these Ponzi schemes, these funds, and these just scam stuff. If you guys ever, here's something I'm opening up to any of you guys. If you ever feel like you got an opportunity to invest in something and you want me to come in and sniff it, I am an expert at that. I said a bad word, but I'm a professional junk sniffer. I said that one day, the guy kind of was like, woo, because he was a Christian guy. And I was like, oh, sorry, but I'm good at that. Well, I mean, literally people pay me to come in, sit on a Zoom, to ask questions to see if someone else is legit. And I was just saying to someone yesterday, it is a spiritual gift of the ability to see through some certain things. But I open that up to all of you guys. If you're like, man, there's an opportunity. If you want me to come sniff it out for you, happy to do it. But I was talking to this friend of mine, and he was saying, yeah, there's this guy he was good at getting people to give him money for these investments. It was like restaurants or Amazon drop ship or family apartment, whatever these things are. I'm not saying they're all scams, but sometimes they're just scams. And he just, all caught up to him, right? So it's like Proverbs says, whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. And he was saying that this guy, not only did he get served, major lawsuit, wife also served him the same day. So she's divorce him out, and he also got served by a handful of people that he took their money, and he's flying jets and driving Rolls Royces and mansions and stuff, but he was living off other people's money. He wasn't actually investing that money. And it's I've just seen a lot of stuff on TV enough. I don't know about you guys, where people I'm so skeptical of those things. If I can't build that thing with my hands, I'm not putting my money into it. And so I say that if you guys ever, I'm opening that door up. If you're like, Adam, I'm looking at this thing, just hit me up. Email me details with a question. I'm going to talk about it. Hold on. I'm going to vent for a second. If you have a question, it requires a question mark somewhere in the email. We're going to have a growth thing real quick. Because sometimes I get emails and it's a lot of statements. And I'm like, there wasn't a question there, right? So it's, and we can do this. I'm going on a tangent here, but we can do this as we communicate, especially as spouses, right? My wife might say something like, hey, we've had that toaster for a while. I bought her a toaster the other day. But she could say something. We had that toaster for a while because she wants me to engage. Yeah, you're right. Should we get a new one? Yes. And then she gets the answer she wants, right? And so, but I say this: read your email or think about your statement and say, did I actually ask a question, or I just kind of like say a bunch of things, and you're hoping that the person on the other end catches it. It's hard, right? And so I have a habit, especially long emails, is I look for question marks. No question marks? I'm like, thanks, love it. Because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't want to be assumptive on things, right? And then and that person's like, you didn't answer my question. I'm like, what was your question? And we kind of get in a little dance. But it's a learning exercise because I want you to be better when you go into somewhere else, whether you're going to ask a customer for the business and they're like, I don't see where you asked me for the business here. You just talked about the business, right? And so listen, these are all things I had to learn. People had to beat me up on to learn as well. And so I share that with you because it's something super important. So if you guys, when you guys email me, if you do, and you have any questions on anything, I'm happy and love to help. RTX at revivaltoday.com. Throw a few question marks in there. I scan for those first. And then I'll read, because it could be like a whole bunch of stuff, and then, hey, do you have a financial advisory director? Oh yeah, I know that I can answer. And then I'm reading it with the question in mind, right? So if I told you a big story, like, oh hey Dallas, I need something, and you're like, okay, what do you need? And I just started telling you this big story, and you're like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And then I finished it, and you're like, I don't know how I'm supposed to help you, right? Are you hungry? Do you need a ride to the place you told me about? Oh, you're thinking of buying it. Oh, okay. Well, should I buy this? Question mark. Strong. But anyway, hope that there's a book I'm reading right now. It's awesome. I'm going to recommend this if you're writing stuff down and taking notes. It's called Ask Powerful Questions. And it's hopefully it doesn't start playing, by Will Wise. It's a game changer. This book, this is kind of why I'm picking on this topic. But it also just helps you learn how to facilitate conversations, communications, going back to the beginning, we talked about our name and being intentional with our name. The same thing when we're having conversation. Being intentional with our question, less emotion, more intention, right? Because I might feel I conveyed this message really well, but if I didn't and you didn't receive it, then it's all lost, right? So the intentionality will pull that out if you do that. So there's a little side note. So the integrity, why the integrity is so important is because it builds a brand, right? I was just talking about this with a new business partner of mine. We've been friends for a while. We've known each other. He's a guy of integrity. He thinks I'm a guy of integrity. What we're building, we just launched this thing over the weekend and did $30,000 our first day, which is awesome based on this business. And the reason I say that, and him and I kind of talked about this, is where, like, if I'm going to do business with somebody, I have to know about you. You have to have a good personal brand. And not just being a good person, like, you got to be a good business person. I know a lot of good people that I wouldn't do business with because on the business side, they're not that good at business, right? And so you have to go through this process. And so that integrity, that personal brand happens where in the last 30 days, I launched 2 new companies. And I won't have to run and operate the day-to-days of them, but part of it's just being a network of like, hey, I can do this one thing, you can do that other thing, this guy wants to help promote it. You want to build that thing? Okay. And they're like, oh, well, how will we? So we figure that out, and I call it a unique unfair advantage. And so I'll ask you this from the business side. If you're thinking about launching a business or starting a business, think of what is my unique unfair advantage. And I'll talk about that in a second. I learned that from Tony Robbins. And so we had a unique unfair advantage. We had an opportunity to where we think we could just hit the ground running, take off, and a business plan to scale that 10x, and a plan of who we know who might want to buy that thing once it's like really cranking. And so, but that's two guys that have been in a space for a long time. We're like, hey, let's do this thing. And we both know each other. We both have integrity. We've both worked with each other on different deals. And so it goes quick. And those kind of deals happen. You know, like I was, the other business was I paid $10,000 to be at a party. And I think I talked about this maybe last time I was here, with a bunch of other entrepreneurs, all good people. And I'll tell you this from a networking standpoint, because this was powerful. During the party, the two hosts got up on the table and they're like, shut the music, got everybody's attention. So everybody get off your phone and go talk to each other. Talk about what you do. Hey, I'm Adam. I'm in healthcare. This is what I do. Here's the things. He's like, go do this. You guys all paid to be here. We actually, one of my companies sponsored it, but it was $10,000 to get in the room. So you might think $10,000 to go to a party? That seems stupid. I will make millions of dollars because I went to that party. And not because I stood there on my phone or I hide in the corner. I went up, shook hands, and I also have a background of integrity. So some of these people I meet, they're like, oh yeah, I've heard about you. You do the stuff, you do this thing, you do, yep. Man, I've always wanted to get into, really? You want to build that thing? Yeah, let's do that. Launched. And so there's part of this, it's like you're playing multiple games. You're building your personal brand, you're learning new skills, right? Like, I mean, for me, reading, like something like if you're not reading at least a book a month, you are losing. And you should be reading like 2, especially I do Audible. I fly a lot. I can bang a book out in like a week when I'm flying a lot. I haven't flown in like 3 weeks, so I'm behind on my book. But when I go to the gym and I do my 1 mile walk. And while I'm on my 1 mile walk, doing my commitment, right, the integrity of myself, every day I go to the gym and do a mile. And while I'm doing my mile, I listen to 20 minutes of that. I'm getting knowledge, I'm getting education, blood's flowing, feeling good, feeling confident, feeling happy about myself. Then I go do those things. And then you do those things for a decade, and then people call you up and want to launch businesses with you, right? So it doesn't happen overnight, but it starts by stacking this stuff over and over and over, and it builds that integrity where people are like, oh yeah, like the news thing. The guy he just texts me, he's like, hey, you want to be on my show tonight? I'm like, yeah. No big deal. And I'm like, woo! I was like, dude, national news? Heck yeah. Like it's cool, but it's because of the work I've done, right? Because of that personal brand, that integrity, the 25 conversations I've had with that guy, answered his questions, showed him different things, friends of his that he's introduced that I've helped out and taken care of, right? And so all of those things creating this personal brand that opens bigger doors, right? And so how am I creating my personal brand? Because my personal brand has to come before my business brand, right? And a lot of us, last time we talked about social media, and I was like, hey, if you're on social media, you got to be out there. Let's post some stuff about the Lord, sharing who you are, letting people get to know who you are. Some of you guys follow me on social media, and maybe you know me personally or don't know me personally. Like, I like to hope that I line up with the person you see on social media. Like a lot of times you see these guys like just posing by jets all day long. I won't even entertain a conversation with any of those people. I don't want to meet you. You're fake. Nobody, that's it? You just lean on Lamborghinis all day? That sounds pretty weird. And so, but that authentic piece. And then also with social media is stop hiding. Make it. It doesn't need to be private. What's private? You know what's private? Private's people that do shady stuff. No, it's not. Yes, it is. If you have a good life and a good, beautiful family, you're doing good, great things, let the world see you. We're not of this world, but we're in it. And if someone can look at my life and go, bro, what's your secret? It's Jesus. But I mean, Jesus, that's my secret. And there's plenty of men I know that feel the same way I do, that they love showing their life off so they can also show God off, right? And so open your life up to people. Let people see how you live. Be transparent. And someone said to me a while back, and it really stuck with me, is the most powerful man in a room. And I say this, I deal with a lot of alpha male, who's who, everybody thinks are awesome people, but the most powerful man in the room is the one that can live their life transparently. No side chick, no inappropriate conversation, no secret drug habit. That guy. Like, that's me. You take my phone anytime. You can follow me around with a hidden camera. Good. Not my whole life, right? But we want to have that kind of integrity in ourselves because God sees. He knows. And we know. So if I know I got this like secret little bad part of me, it will hold me back from there. And so like David says, like, Lord, search my heart. Reveal to me. What is it? Some stuff, we might have anger issues that we're unaware of. We might have issues that we might have that we don't even know they're bad, right? That empathy position has really changed my life, where I used to get frustrated with people, and then I had to realize they just may not know better. When they don't know better, instead of being angry, I get empathetic. Instead of getting mad, I start to love. And then maybe that's what that person needed. They just needed someone to love them for a minute, right? And then all of a sudden, they changed the thing that frustrated me because I chose a different path, right? So like, that could be the thing I need to work on so that the Lord could use me to go do the big things and that he can bless me with also the things that I want, right? So continue to search your heart. And that's where it goes into network. Your network, you guys probably heard this, your network is your net worth, right? And it just is. And I think of like a couple of the big things that happened in my life were, I think I had an opportunity with Tony Robbins where, you know, he worked with my business partner, and I was like, anything your crew, I don't care if it's your assistant, anything you guys need, I'm here, I'll help, right? And that over that relationship, 2 years later, he asked me to be a business partner, right? He's just like, hey, I know I could go figure out, spend money, find someone, hire stuff. He's like, I'd rather just give you equity in this company. If you'll come help us, we got 6 months, we got to launch this thing. Yeah, I'm in, right? And so, but that came because I had a reputation. I showed up. I never asked for anything, but I built that relationship out of my integrity, my personal brand, and that created my network. And then once you do business, once Tony Robbins is your business partner, well, other people, by association, you've passed the sniff test on most people, which is powerful too. And then as that network goes and people know that you're reliable, you do what you say you're going to do. Like, I mean, if you can just do what you say you're going to do, you're in like the top % of people, because most people don't. Most people talk. Most people have ideas. Most people don't execute. And it's part of the reason, as a coach, a lot of people work with me because they need someone to hold them accountable, right? And I had a client of mine. It's funny because he referred another person that to work with me, and the guy's like, "Man, I made my decision to work with you because his friend that referred him to me, who was a client of mine, he's like, that guy's always talked about doing stuff and never does it. And I've never seen that guy do as much as he's done in the last 90 days. And he's like, why are you doing it? And he said, I got this coach. And so then he started working with me too. And so I say that because it's one of the most powerful things that people say is when you say it, and that's what I love about Jonathan. Like, John, he says he's going to do it. He's going to do it, right? And so whether you guys realize it or not, you're attracted to that. You're attracted to that confidence. You're attracted to that strength. You're attracted to that commitment. Because if you look at someone who's just like, weeble out, well, maybe, I don't know, we'll see, we're praying for it. You're like, no, this will be done. And when that happens, it triggers something in all of us to say, man, I want that confidence. I want that certainty too. And so I say all these things because these are things that when I'm thinking about my personal character and I'm thinking about my name, right? This all goes back. Who's Adam Lamb? Right? I know he used to be. He used to be a bartender. I'll tell you about. I'll tangent with that. One of my biggest pet peeves. I've probably talked about this before, and maybe you guys can relate to it. But I bartended in my 20s, and it was like when I stopped bartending and I became, I was into mortgages, and someone would be like, "Oh, someone's making drinks. Oh, ask Adam. He's a bartender." And I used to get so frustrated because they were recalling me for who I used to be. And then even when I got out of that, and I'm like building the business, and it's like someone's like, "Oh yeah, Adam, you're a bartender. Don't you? What kind of drinks?" I'm like, "Dude, I haven't done that in 15 years. I did like Jack and Coke. That's it. I think you just put Jack and Coke. Like I don't know. I wasn't a mixologist. I worked in nightclubs. But sometimes you can see, and I say it because I want you to think about, as we have this name conversation, when someone refers to you as a past version of yourself you don't like, and you feel it, hold it for a second. Because sometimes someone says that and you're like, "Ugh." but we never address it. So sometimes you can step into that and say, why does this bother me? Do I still see myself that way? Is there a part of that old label or that old version of me that I might not feel like I'm fully stepped out of? Is there a part of me that thinks that, will I have to go back to being a bartender one day? Like if this thing I'm working on falls apart, do I have to go back to being a secretary? Do I have to go back to being an administrative assistant? Will I have to go back to dairy manager at Giant Eagle if this thing doesn't work out, right? And so what happens is that old name, that old brand, that old title can remind us of what failure could look like as we move forward. And so when we stop and wrestle with that and become confident in our new name, the new version of ourselves, it doesn't bother us anymore. And we can move forward. It doesn't become a distraction. So I'm almost done. And so let's see, when you do all the things above correctly, over and over, your network will begin to grow. And that's where, like I said, like launching 2 businesses in the last 30 days by no might of my own. And I say that because I have launched businesses and it has been a lot of work. This is by no might of my own. Like me coming in and with you guys, it's the Holy Spirit. I'm like, hey guys, we'll do this, and like, it just comes. I can see the whole thing, and people are like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm like, all right, you guys execute. Where, in regular rooms, I'm just like, it's a gift. I see it, but it is. It's a Holy Spirit gift. The Spirit just shows me the way quickly. And that allows me to come in and bring a tremendous amount of value, think of all the little nuanced things, and then help align the right people with the right task. And then I get to step back, and people do that, and I do like a weekly call, which is awesome. But some people see that, and they think that's what they want to do today. And I'm like, ooh, hold on, buddy, you just started. The Holy Spirit ain't speaking to you the same way yet. Hold on, because you won't understand what the Spirit's trying to speak to you. And so, but I say that because as that network builds and then more people are looking to work with you, where you have to say no to more opportunity than you say yes to, right? It's a wild thing when that transition happens where you're like, nope, and you can identify the idea faster than you would before because you get those reps with it. And so as your network grows, your opportunity grows. As your opportunity grows, the speed at which you can accomplish big things grows. And it becomes a supernatural game of multiplication. But you have to understand how the calculator works to do it. And that takes time. And so who's that going to be up to? It's up to you. For me, I have to say, what did I do today to get better? Well, I read the Bible. I read the book on the plane. I took a nap on the plane too. I had a couple good conversations about exploring some growth in a business. I had a couple cool guys, super powerful, super successful guys that wanted my advice that I talked to. I feel good about that because those are guys that they would love to have me in a big business and have already helped me quite a bit. So I'm looking at my day and I'm saying, what did I do to get better today? And it's that simple. I just shared with you guys, like that's my every single day. I'm like, what did I do? And some days I'm like, I didn't do anything today. And you don't want a lot of those days. And so I'm telling you this because going back to this, building this name, right? Like I said, that my name 20 years ago was the same name as it is today, but what it stood for was drastically different. And a lot of you in this room might say, yours is too. And listen, I'll tell you, there's some default things we shouldn't hang our hat on. 20 years ago, you're like, hey, I was single, I didn't have any kids, so now I'm a dad, now I'm a husband. Great. Everybody else does that too. But if you want to have a legacy, you're probably going to have to do some other stuff. You have to do some better stuff. And then realizing, and that's the part of, we spent so much time talking about goal setting, vision, identity, who we want to be, who we want to become. And that work is required. And sometimes you just don't know, and so you have to explore. And that's where going and reading these books, finding some books. I posted a ton of books. I think last time I was here, if you guys aren't on the Facebook group, join that, Revival Executives. You get them loaded in. You're doing a great job. Appreciate your help. I'm going to do a better job at being more active on there that's something I need to do better at. But that's one thing too and I mentioned the young lady, I forgot her name, that gave me this sweet gift right here, is what are some things you gotta get better at? So it's three simple things to think about. What do I gotta start doing that I'm not doing? What do I gotta stop doing? And what do I gotta sustain? And so like I may have to stop eating bad food. I maybe need to stop staying up so late. That summertime, the kids got to school, dude, that has been, I'm usually like a 4:30 in the morning, I'm up, I'm in bed by 9:30, and then the Jonathan dude came to town for a week, and I was out till like midnight. It was perfect timing, that the kids are out of school, already in this like, no one's getting up early vibe. I haven't stayed out that late, I thought it was at like a rave. I was like, this is all the hype without the drugs and the loud music, and there's still some great music with the praise and worship. But I mean, it was a long week of someone that goes to bed at 9:30 and I'm like rolling in at 1 o'clock almost every day. It was awesome. But anyway, there's a part of that where I was like, man, I am like sleep until 7 o'clock, which is rare to me. And so I have to go back and say, okay, what do I got to stop? I got to stop staying up so late. I got to start getting up early again. I got it right. And then what do I have to sustain? Because likely all of you are doing something good. You're here, it's Wednesday. So like, what am I doing that's good, that's working? These are 3 simple steps that like start, stop, sustain. Simple stuff. And that will help you become this version, this brand, this personal brand, this name, this legacy. There's a few questions that people sent over on Facebook I want to tap into, and then I'll wrap up and see if you guys have any. One was on time management, routine advice, and so I live on my calendar. So like my calendar, if you told me, Adam, what do you have going on tomorrow? I don't know. I think my flight leaves at, I think it's like 8:30, but I know I can look at it's on my calendar. I set my alarm to get up. I think I'm getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I could double check that. But other than that, I don't remember the things I have to do. They're all on my calendar. If you were leaving things to memory, you will never be able to accomplish big stuff. There is no way. I don't know what I'm doing. I open my calendar and I look like, I'll show you like tomorrow. So here's like, that's tomorrow. There's my flight. There's my call right as soon as I land with my assistant. And then I got noon and 1 and 2, and then 2, 2:30, 3, and then 4 o'clock I'm done. But I'm sure something will get on there. It always does. And so that's my calendar. And then I have my email. You want to see something crazy? I'll show you that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 email accounts. And so those are my tasks. These are the things I have to pay attention to. And some emails are more important than others. But I say that because in this conversation around how do I stay more organized is, what do you do? So for me, it's calendar is what I have to do next. And then email are the tasks, things I have to complete. And so if Adala sends me an email and she has a question and I'm not able to answer that email, I leave it unchecked. Oh shoot. It's, sorry about that. Holy water. That's about to bless my shoe with it. And so part of that routine is, that's what I have. And then I have, like I said, I've slacked on the time I get up, but having these commitments of I wake up, if I wake up at 4:30 and I do my sauna, I do my cold plunge, I go to the gym, I just regiment. I do these things, and then I'm not thinking what I need to eat. What do you need for lunch? I just go to my fridge, chicken, rice, or beef, rice. That's the biggest, wildest, crazy thing. Which one do I want to have? And maybe I'm out of it. We haven't had a nanny in like 45 days, so we're on thin ice in my house. My wife's done a great job. That's why I bought her the toaster. Dead serious. We have a funny marriage. I was like, babe, you've been crushing it. I really realized it because she was out of town last week. I was like, I see all the stuff that you're doing. I want to get you something. She's like, honey, you don't have to get me. I'm like, no. And so I got this big, it was a Christmas bag from, I'll just say an old nanny of ours. I was going to make fun of her, but it wasn't even addressed to my wife. So it was like it was like from Paula to like Lamb family. My wife's like, what's that thing in the counter? It's like, oh, that's your present. She opens up as a toaster for all our hard work. But she appreciates those funny things with that. But I say that so everything's regimented, and when I'm at my best, everything's mapped out. I don't have to decide because my performance is when I'm in the call. To go from a coaching call with a client to business progress call in one company to another company, a prospecting call, like that mental shift. I can't think about what I'm going to go eat for lunch. I can't think about what time am I going to go to the gym. Because what will happen is I'm going to eat bad and I'm not going to go to the gym. And so when I lock all these things in from an organization standpoint, I don't have issues. I don't miss things. I don't forget things. Everything stays pretty tight and organized. And so that's the key thing from a time management is schedule that. And it's one of the biggest things I work on with my clients too, is just getting them organized so their time doesn't get hijacked, right? Like I won't answer some of the phone calls, like unplanned phone calls. Never, ever, ever will I answer them, period. Unless like today is a unique thing. My wife was getting ready to board her flight. She was in Nashville, and I just landed. And then I get a phone call from a Nashville number. And my wife she'll lose her phone. You know, I was just like, oh, what'd she do? Like she lost something, needs a picture of her driver's license. So I answered, it was some lady with a company of mine that she needed some paperwork signed. But other than that, I wouldn't answer those phone calls. Because if you're not on my calendar, I don't have time. Like, I don't have an hour to just talk about what's new. If you do, congratulations. But I think we should probably fill the calendar up with some more productive things. Reading books, doing some other things that we want to do. So that's something, gym, date night. I have date night tomorrow night on my calendar, 6 o'clock. My wife and I will go on date night. And that's one that we might massage, but it's on both of our calendars. And if it works, we're both in town, we'll go. It's just like, oh, date night, 6 o'clock, yeah. Because otherwise it won't happen. Also, the other thing I put on here too is scheduling like family vacations. That's a priority. If my family's like, hey, we never go on vacation, but you never miss a meeting with a client, you never miss a trip for work, how does it make them feel from a priority standpoint in my life? So I'm like, hey, let's sit down. My wife and I will start planning some things. Now, it doesn't work for everybody to do that stuff, but I like to do it because like I said, tomorrow I don't have anything after 4, something else will get on there. Right, my Fridays are usually I leave wide open. They usually fill up because the work will fill up. But some of us have older kids in here. Like time that you don't get that time back. It's the most important time with the family, keeping the marriage strong, all these kind of things. So schedule everything, and you'll be successful with it. One is another question, and if you guys have any questions, we'll open it up. Is moving from a 9-to-5, starting a business, scaling to quit your 9-to-5, and shooting beyond what you ever thought you'd earn. And it's great. And I had to go through that same process myself with wanting to, you have to figure out, like, what do I want to do? And so the two main things with anyone considering starting a business is what do you love and how much money you need to want to make. And if you get all like emotional, like, well, I could get by with, dude, you're not ready. Wild stuff, right? How much money? I want to make $1 million. Cool. Let's reverse engineer how you're going to have to do that. Are you able to do that work? Do you have the skill set? Do you have to hire people? Do you have to learn a bunch of stuff before you even jump into that water? Let's make sure you know how to swim. And so I say that I think everybody should, if you want to start a side hustle or trying to start a business from, here's my job, I want to start a business. We all have a lot of time. Stop watching TV. Stop hanging out with friends. Stop doing like things that don't move it forward. And so for me, I left, when I started my first company, I was working at a mortgage company. I was working like 12 hours a day. It was like 8 to 8 every day, Monday through Friday. But like 2 Saturdays a month we'd work. I hated it. And it was like an hour commute. The money was good. But I had no time. I had no energy to do the other thing. So I left, and I started working at a bank, which had 9-to-5 hours. And so I had to make a move. So I had to take an identity shift of being this portfolio manager at this big mortgage company to going to be a mortgage loan officer. So the outside world could be like, what are you doing, Adam? And I could have been like, oh, I'm fearful of that. And I had to take a pay decrease, right? So I could have got fear, could have talked me out of that. But I was so certain on the thing I wanted to do that the opinion of other people didn't matter. In the monetary side, thank God my wife also worked and had a good solid job. So, but that was, January 2012 when I made the decision to go work at the bank and start my business. And then I worked at the bank while I built this business until June of 2013 is when I burned the ship. So I've been 100% self-employed for, I guess now it's 11 years, which is crazy. It's crazy. And the last few have been a lot of fun. Way before that, it was tough, dude. It sucked. I didn't have any training. No one had my back. I didn't go to business school. I didn't have anyone. All I knew was a knucklehead. So I had to stop hanging out with knuckleheads and start hanging out with smart people. I had to start gravitating to, which is weird too, because you don't feel like you fit in. You're an imposter. You're nobody. You don't deserve to be at the table. All the stories you could tell yourself, you have to learn. So it's like read books, get around good people that want to help you, and then you go really, really fast. And you get a lot of reps in. You got to be ready to fail. And so I think someone that's considering that is like, if you have your job, you're just going to have to work outside of your job. I mean, if you work 3 hours, 5 days a week, I mean, that's huge. It's from a time standpoint on building stuff. And so, and I also, something else I'll add to that, if you're considering a partner, find a partner that is the opposite of you. First couple partners I had were like dudes just like me. Well, there's a whole side of the business. We're like sales guys, right? We crush it. But who's going to do the fulfillment? Who's going to do the boring stuff, the paperwork, not one of us. So now we got to find someone else. And so, fortunately, I'm blessed to meet people, realize that, where it's like now I find someone I'm like, ooh, like the people like me. I'm like, ooh, I got enough of you guys. People that are unlike me, they're different, that see things. I'm like, ooh, that's someone I could go build something with because I know I can do all this. I can. You kind of have the mentality of like, I'm a hunter. I want to go out and kill it. I will chase it down, kill it. I might bring it back to camp. I don't really want to bring it back to camp, but I'm definitely not cutting it up, preparing the meat, cooking it, calling everybody for dinner and setting the table. Some people are like, I don't want to go out there and kill it. I just want to set the table and get everybody, cool, that's my people. And so finding out who our personality is, but also having an understanding of like, what's the expectation of the table? What's the table need to look like? Who are the guests? How are we serving? Like culture. There's some culture things that as a business owner you want to know, even though you may not be fulfilling that side of the business. So that was a little extra. Any other questions that anyone has? Otherwise, I will wrap it up if we don't have any more questions. Any questions? There we go. Yeah, I just use the one on that iPhone. So if you guys have an Android, I can't help you. I'm assuming they're all the same. Yeah, I have like my regular iPhone calendar, but almost all of my emails are Google-based, Gmail-based, and so a lot of integration with, I hated tech. Unfortunately, one of the main people that's been on my team for a long time, she loves the tech. She does the tech, she hooks it up. She has access to my calendar and shows me how to do little widgety cool things. Find those people. There's people that love that stuff. And they usually like a guy like me who's the loud hunter killer. And because they want to show value too. And so finding someone that knows how to do that stuff. But yeah, I use just a regular calendar app on my phone. Because that's where, like I said, when everything's kind of, you can see it. And it's color coded based on company and context, just keeping it organized. But that's what I use. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. You at first.
Other than the trust fund for the family, what are some things that you're doing generationally to make sure that your children are taken care of and that they share the same values as well?
That's a good question. Value standpoint is, taking them to church, making sure that's important, showing up every day. I mean, how you live your life versus how you tell your kids to live your life is two different things. And so my goal is to live what I lead, right? So I want to model a life what I value, what I should. And even I got that Lamborghini, I let my son drive it. Same day. Picked him up. I was like, hey, I'll take you for a spin. We got out, and I was like, all right, you can drive. He's like, really? I was like, yeah. Because I want to break, this sounds silly and a lot of people won't value this, but I wanted to break this. I never saw a Lamborghini before I was in my 20s. My son is 16, and he's driven a Lamborghini and a Ferrari in the last 45 days. Because I believe that the power that we give things is what keeps us away from these things. And so when he's like, yeah, I've driven a Ferrari, driven a Lamborghini, his ability to like, for that to be real, like for him to think of, you can't just like snap your fingers and get a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. You have to be doing, there's certain levels of things you have to accomplish. And so, but I want him to see this. It's not for dad. It's not for that guy. It's for anyone that chooses to go after it, right? It's not about the car. I don't care about the cars. That's why I don't even keep them 6, 9 months. I mean, I had the Ferrari for 6 months. I don't care. The Lamborghini, I don't know. We'll see. They're not possessions. They're experiences, right? They're not treasures stored up, right? And so teaching them that, hey, we have these experiences. What do you want? What are the goals? What are the things? Maybe his is a boat. Maybe it's a plane. I don't know, right? But I want to teach my kids that nothing is off the table for you to accomplish. And say the same thing for you guys. Like I said, if not you, who? Nothing's off the table. So that's a core principle I'm instilling in my kids, and even still having to instill in my wife because she's come from a different upbringing, more conservative, go get a job, work corporate, for a long time. And so putting that belief into her, like, what do you want to do? You can go do it, if we stepped outside the box. But for my kids, I want to hold that container for them so that they don't get sucked into what the world wants them to do. Right, but from a financial stuff, yeah, like the trust. I mean, that's it. There's certain like life insurance. Like Monday, I'm increasing my life insurance policy. And that life insurance policy, the beneficiary will be the trust. Like so there's stuff. I have a financial planner that can help, put all that stuff together, which makes sense. And there's like different levels and different phases. Where like with kids, once they hit a certain age, you can hire them, pay them tax free. The business. It's a tax deduction for the business. You can do with 401ks. There's a lot of different strategic stuff there's a ton of stuff that you could do with it. So just, doing all of those things there's a long list of it. You probably got some time. I know you're young, but it's good to be thinking about. Because that was one of the things too. I'll tell you this, way before I had money, I wanted to figure out, I was like, what do all these rich people do? How do they not pay taxes? I want to learn all this stuff. And so I did, even though I don't have their money yet. I want to figure out later. I don't want to make $20, $30 million mistake because was too lazy to go learn tax code, right? Too lazy to learn how to redistribute money into other businesses and do other things with it. You just learn that stuff. It's interesting to me. I think it's cool. So if I learn that, it brings me closer to that, right? Just like my son driving the Lamborghini brings it closer to it. He's like, oh, I've driven a Lamborghini. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't have as much power as I thought it had, like from a tangible standpoint, if that makes sense. You had a question? Yeah.
Yeah, quick one. Thanks. This has been awesome. The question is, what would you recommend from your network and your thinking for the next 2 to 5 years? The best 3 areas, services to build businesses in, or ideas that would be like open territory to go after that would be fruitful in the next coming years, like 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so a couple things. What you're articulating is a great book. It's called Blue Ocean Theory. And what it talks about, the premise behind the book, though, is there's Red Ocean, which is the bloody ocean, which everyone's fighting in. And then you have the Blue Ocean. And so when I started my first company, it was a telemedicine company in 2012. No one knew what telemedicine was. I figured out how to do it, read the DEA stuff, what we had to do, what the doctor has to do to be compliant, and we did it. Wasn't a lot of competition. Super easy to be really good at that. And then when COVID hit, and everybody was like, oh, telemedicine. Well, I'd been doing it for almost a decade. So right place, right time, didn't know, but I felt like this is something from a convenience standpoint, I was like, it just makes sense. So part of it was, and the reason I say that first is like, it was this health, wellness space that I loved, right? So first thing is like, what do you love? Where can it disrupt, right? Where can I disrupt something in an area that I love? So if you don't love it, like there's just certain things that I get businesses I get looked at, I just don't love it. And that's why like on the coaching side or like consulting side, I don't have to love your business. I can love you and I can love your growth, but I don't have to love your business, right? And so that's helped me because I love watching transformation. I love personal growth. I love watching people grow. So it's, again, going back to like figuring out what you really, really love. And so, I mean, like things like, let's see, healthcare is always going to be an issue, right? People are always going to die. It sounds morbid, but like that's a space that kind of interests me, is like the death space. People are going to die. I don't know, is it land for burials? Is it a funeral home? Like, I don't know. But there's, I mean, unfortunately, I had a friend of mine pass away, I think I told you guys about last year, and he was in a good position. I helped with a lot of the funeral bills, and part of me was like, what? Like, this is how expensive this is? And he was like, you know, we didn't do anything. There's no F-16s or gun salute or anything. Like, it was nothing special. But, so I say that, doesn't sound fun. It's not exciting, but there's something it's going to be. Now I could say something like AI. Dude, everybody's there. It's already done. It was like at the time wasn't saved, but like the medical marijuana space. That stuff took off. Everybody and their mother and bonehead, pothead, idiot went in that space. And I was like, forget it. You're going to have drug dealers trying to go legit and potheads. I don't want to deal with this. And you're going to have like big corporate stuff. So I just like, I've seen spaces where I got opportunity to go into these markets and I just was like, no. And so, because I don't think everybody should smoke weed. So why would I go build a business in the weed space, right? And so that's the other part of it too, from a integrity standpoint, is I only do businesses that I'm interested in, right? That I would do. You know, like my telemedicine company, I was a client before I had a business, right? A stem cell company, I was a client before I got my life back. So there's certain things I think that are important from that standpoint. But you have to look at like, what do I love? What are my skills? And then I think looking at like that blue ocean, just making sure it's not a place that's just where everybody's at. It just doesn't interest me to be in a place like that. There's too much competition. Things become a commodity. That's why I got out of I sold my company in the hormone space because nationwide telemedicine hormones is super popular. And so I'm not competing at that space anymore. I'm competing at a different level in that space without the burden of what the business was before where I'm at today, if that makes sense. Any other questions? Anybody hiding behind the pillar? No? Any more questions? Oh, yeah.
Maybe this is too technical and too broad, but what's your recommendation on the customer acquisition strategy for various businesses that you have?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think for like customer acquisition, it depends. So a couple things going back to his question. I like high ticket stuff. I don't like low ticket because you're going to have a cost of acquisition, right? And so if you're selling a $25 widget and it costs you $25 to get a person, you don't have a good business, right? And so, I've had businesses where our price per person is like $5,000, right? And so if I have to spend $500 in marketing dollars to get that person, but I 10x my money, right? So what's my ticket? So those are things like that, like where's my ticket? How can I change my ticket? Like how can I increase the value that I give? So it's less commodity, more value, right? Like I said, in the testosterone space, a bottle of testosterone's got a cost, but a service, 24/7 access, all this, ship it right to you. You can hit a thing and talk to like all this service, well, we can charge a little bit more. Now it's not a commodity. Because someone could get the same thing. Well, I can get it down the street for that price. You don't get me. You don't get our team. You don't have this access. What's it take to get to your doctor? Oh, it's hard to get there. They're always late. I don't feel like they hear me. They don't do all oh, great. Well, that's why you're paying more with me. We offer more value, right? So, but I think with that process, so I'll tell you, it's an organic piece of, so like anyone that wants to start a company has to be able to go out and tell everybody they know about their business. If you're scared to do that, you're going to fail. Because everybody wants I want to hop into ads and getting on, a lot of people, it's funny, I've seen them and their businesses take off, 100% of the people, is going on your social media. Talk about what you do. Tell the story. Get in your story every day. Talk about this. Whatever the problem is you solve, whatever the passion is, whatever the market is, whatever, just content. So what happens is eventually you're going to have to deliver the message. And in the beginning, you're not going to be good. And so get good at it, get passionate about it, have your talk track, have your spiel down, which you practice on social media, which is a great tool. Who cares what people think, right? I don't care. At the end of this, if all you guys are like, God, the Adam guy sucks, but the food is good, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. I'm still going to go do all the cool stuff I'm going to do. Now, if you guys are like, that Adam guy's awesome, I'm going to take some notes of what he's going to do and that, and you guys share with me the things that, like, that's awesome. But it doesn't affect where I'm going to go, right? But I say that to you is like doing your own personal marketing, organic marketing first is going to help you get confident with your own business that you're selling. And then you can go into ads, and everything's different. I mean, there's like, I'm doing a thing for doctors. I'm actually sending out, so I'm paying for doctors' addresses, like, so I'm getting the data, and I'm sending a black envelope that says, are you sick of being a slave to your practice? And a QR code. That's it. Nothing else. So what we are all very curious people. So what's up? What they're going to do? They're going to take the phone, poop the QR code. They're going to go to a landing page specific to that with some video of, like, punch them in the face, get their attention, see if they're my kind of person. Maybe it's the spouse. Maybe the wife sees it. It's like, oh, he'll never read this because he's never home because he's always at work. And then she sees, oh, I help you stop trading time for dollars. Hey, honey, you need to call this guy. In fact, I signed you up to work with him because this marriage is falling apart, and this guy seems like he's the solution to you and your practice and your time. And then I got a client that way. So it's like, is it going to work? I don't know. I'll let you know if it works. Maybe it's awesome. Maybe it flops. But if I spend $5,000 in that mailer and I get one client, right? Crushed it. Right? And I only get one client, I won't do it again. But if I get a bunch of clients, I'll probably keep doing it. Start going all over the nation, right? So there's different ways. I really don't like going back to the blue ocean, red ocean, Facebook, all this like, it's just so much stuff there. So you can go build Facebook groups. Like, there's so many unique ways, and that's where, like, the unique specific business does matter. But no matter what your business or what you want to do, whether you could be trying to get people to come to church, good. Go talk about Revival Today on your story every single day, and watch how many people you get to come with you to church. A lot, I promise you. It's just effort. If you do the effort first, later on it all kind of multiplies. Hopefully that answered your question. Any other questions you guys have? No? All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up.